Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise, all the fads, and the hype to really understand how food can be an incredibly powerful, science-backed tool for your health. Okay, let's dive in.
So, have you ever felt completely lost in this endless sea of diet advice? One day it's keto, the next it's a juice cleanse. It's confusing, right? You are definitely not alone. But what if we just shifted our focus? What if we looked past the temporary fads and towards strategies that are actually proven to work long term? And that's exactly where this idea comes in, the therapeutic diet. Now, this is not about a quick fix to lose a few pounds. Think of it more like a prescription. It's a specific eating pattern backed by real scientific evidence that's used to manage or even improve a specific health condition. It's all about using food with a clear purpose. So, with that in mind, let's meet some of the most well-researched therapeutic diets out there. And I want you to think of these not as a bunch of rigid, complicated rules, but more like specialized tools in a toolbox, where each one is designed for a very specific job. First up, we've got the DASH diet. And the name pretty much says it all. It stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So, no surprise, its main target is high blood pressure. And the game plan is actually pretty simple. You load up on things like fruits, vegetables, and lean proteins, while seriously dialing back on the sodium and saturated fats. So, does it actually work? Oh yeah, for sure. Take a look at this number, 5.5 millimeters of mercury. Now that was the average drop in systolic blood pressure, that's the top number, in the original big clinical trial. That might not sound like a huge number, but trust me, in the world of cardiovascular health, a drop like that is clinically significant and can make a real difference in your risk. Okay, next, let's move on to a tool you've probably heard of, the Mediterranean diet. This one's a bit of a superstar. It's less about hitting one single target and more about promoting overall wellness. It tackles everything from high cholesterol and inflammation to just supporting healthy aging in general. And the core foods are probably what you'd guess. Lots of veggies, healthy fats from things like olive oil and fish, and plenty of whole grains. And the results? They are just so powerful. Get this, a massive review of studies found that people who really stuck to this way of eating had a 23% lower risk of dying from any cause, a nearly 1/4 reduction in your mortality risk just based on your eating pattern. That is incredible. All right, now for a very specialized tool, the low FODMA diet. This one is super targeted. It's designed specifically to help manage the really challenging symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. And the way it works is by temporarily cutting out a very specific group of carbohydrates, these FODMAPs, that can ferment in the gut and cause a lot of distress for people who are sensitive to them. So just how effective is it? Well, some clinical trials have shown that up to 70% of people with IBS get significant relief from their symptoms using this approach. For anyone who has suffered from that kind of chronic bloating and pain, a 70% chance of improvement, that is nothing short of life-changing. Okay, so we've looked at a diet for blood pressure, one for overall wellness, and a really specific one for gut symptoms. On the surface, they seem totally different, right? Well, here's the secret. They actually have way more in common than you might think. And here's how it all breaks down. If you look on the left, you see the specific focus of each diet, the thing they're trying to limit, whether it's sodium or certain carbs. But now, look at the right. The foundation, the stuff that they're all built on, is remarkably consistent. It all comes down to eating more real, whole foods and less processed stuff. It's that simple. And this right here is really the key takeaway of this whole thing. It doesn't matter what the diet is called or what it's specifically targeting. The most effective evidence-based ways of eating all share these core principles. They're packed with plants, they're high in whole foods, they're low in all that ultra-processed junk, they feature healthy fats, and they cut way back on refined sugars and grains. This is the blueprint. So, understanding the blueprint is great, but how do you actually use it, right? How do you pick the right tool from the toolbox and really make it work for you in your life? Well, here's a simple 5-step framework. First, you've got to match the diet to your main health concern. Second, you have to adapt it to your life. Use foods that are local and affordable for you. Third, and this is a big one, you have to prioritize what you can actually stick with long term. Fourth, you monitor how you're feeling, what your health markers are saying, and you adjust as needed. And finally, and this is probably the most important step, you do all of this with a qualified professional, like a doctor or a registered dietitian. Okay, A framework is awesome, but we all know that starting any new habit can feel, well, pretty daunting. So let's break this whole journey down into manageable pieces to actually make it happen.
I want you to think about it in 3 phases. In the first few months, your only job is to focus on removing the worst offenders and just building a simple, solid foundation. That's it. Then, as you move into the intermediate phase, you can start to refine things, maybe add some beneficial enhancers like spices or fermented foods. And after about 9 months or so, this thing you're doing, it's not a diet anymore. It's just how you eat. It becomes a sustainable lifestyle.
You know, this quote just gets right to the heart of it. Being perfect on a diet for 1 week is pretty much useless. It's the consistency, day after day, month after month, that produces real, lasting change. Sustainability isn't just a nice idea, it's truly the single most important factor for success. So instead of getting overwhelmed thinking about this massive diet overhaul, let's just end with one simple question. What is one single, healthy, whole food that you can add to your plate today? Maybe it's a handful of berries, or a side of broccoli, or a piece of fish. That small step, that's where real change always begins. Thanks so much for joining me.